more than 50 years, he's helped define the American hero, a cowboy who, without missing a beat, could strum out a love song, punch out a bad guy, or rescue a dangling damsel in distress.
Help! 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 Somebody!
Gee, thanks. Say, are you Stormy Billings?
That's right, just Stormy.
Well, I'm Roy Rogers, just Roy.
Ironically, this legend of the man who would be king of the cowboys started completely by accident.
What a lucky guy am I.
In 1937, Gene Autry was supposed to star in the film Under Western Stars, but when Gene was late for the first day of shooting, the studio filled in with a new kid, Leonard Franklin Sly, on a horse named Golden Cloud.
Tonight when coyotes howl.
Well, before the dust had settled on the movie sets, the actor and the horse had new names, and Roy Rogers, the movie star, was born. 200 films and television episodes later, he is part of American folklore.
What are you going to name him, Roy? I just did. It's Trigger.
He was born in 1911 on a riverboat in Ohio and dropped out of high school to work on the family farm near a town called Duck Run. The family, which includes 3 sisters, was desperately poor, and they moved west to California, where people were actually getting paid to sing on the radio.
Breath of heaven on her face.
All right, roll it. Action.
Though time doesn't wait, still perhaps before it is too late, she may find what she's dreaming.
And there was something called motion pictures going on there as well.
Yeah, are you a cowboy?
No.
Roy Rogers will be 80 years old next month. These days, he spends most of his time at his museum in Victorville, California, where he has collected a lifetime of his memories. And by the way, they haven't all been happy trails. His first wife, Arlene, died less than a week after giving birth to Roy Jr. After working with her in several films, Roy married starlet Dale Evans, but again there was tragedy. Their daughter Robin Elizabeth was born retarded and died a short time later. 2 other adopted children, John David and Deborah, died in accidents. Today the Rogers clan is very close. They number 6 children, 16 grandchildren, 23 great-grandchildren, with 2 more on the way. Our correspondent Jill Rappaport visited with this living legend at his museum, where Trigger is one of the mounted displays, and where there's plenty of evidence that they just don't make them like they used to. Not the movies, and not the heroes.
How about a kiss?
Well, you didn't even kiss Dale on screen in any of your movies.
Oh, there's a story about that, too, because when I was making my pictures, the cowboy, his horse was it, you know, and if I even looked like I was going to kiss the leading lady, I'd got a ton of mail saying, leave that mushy stuff out of our pictures, you know. And so we just kept it that way. And I always kid Dale, I said, well, at least I got to kiss my horse, you know.
So you kissed the horse, but you never kissed Dale.
Well, that's the gag we used to play. I've hugged him and kissed him on the nose. He was such a great horse. They threw away the pattern when they made him. And I made about 200 pictures with him. And he was just flawless. And that's why I have him beautifully mounted, rearing up here in the museum, because I just couldn't put him in the ground.
You know, I want to talk about that. I understand your love of the horse. He meant everything to you during your career. But it's a little hard to accept seeing him stuffed.
Well, if you say the alternative, if you bury him, what happens to him? So when somebody asked me, how could you do that to poor old Trigger, which happened one time, I said, would you rather put him in the ground and let the bugs eat him up? And that's exactly what happens. In fact, I said, honey, when I pass away, just skin me out and put me on Trigger.
and I bet you'd do that too, wouldn't you? Well, I heard that Dale said that she hopes that you pass away before her because she's going to worry that you're going to stuff her.
Well, you know, when you lose your sense of humor, you lose just about everything. No, we have a very wonderful, wonderful, beautiful married life. And we've went through the thick and thin of it, you know, the hard times. But we've had a lot of great times, too. And next New Year's Eve, we'll be married 44 years, so something must have worked. And from being in Hollywood, I think it did pretty good.
What do you think it is about your relationship? Why did it work, considering you were in the public eye the majority of it?
Well, I think we both have a sense of humor, and a combination of the tearjerkers that we went through cemented us more, because we could help each other get through these things. Besides, we love one another very much, and we never have an argument that we don't clear the air before we go to bed. And we've had that understanding since we first got married.
The one feature that always stood out, at least for me, when I looked at you, were your eyes. Were the characteristics. I mean, if you had to say what stood out, at least for me,
I always say I'm the only
eyes.
Chinese cowboy in the business. When I first made my very first picture, they were worried about that, even when I took my test, when they first photographed me. So they sent a doctor out on location, and every once in a while she'd drop drops in my eyes and paralyze them when they'd have those reflectors. In those days, they used a lot of reflectors out on location to reflect the sun right, and it's like looking right into the sun. It doesn't make anybody squint, you know. But I premiered my first picture all over the country, and the fan mail started coming in, and one of the first things was mentioned most was my eyes. They liked my squinty eyes, so from then on, they didn't have to have the doctor out on location.
We have the image of your life, happy trails to you riding off into the sunset, but your life has not been without terrible tragedies.
Well, that is life. Dale and I got married, and we had a little girl, and she was a borderline mongoloid. She was Down syndrome, and it's such a helpless feeling. People saying you should put her here or that, and I said, Dale and I both said, we're not going to put her anyplace. We're going to keep her here. We're going to love her. And
you lost your daughter.
We lost her 2 days before her second birthday, and because we started adopting children, because we both liked kids. I adopted 4 children and one foster child, and we lost 2 of those little children. And those things are awfully hard. I don't think if Dale and I hadn't been Christians and believed in Christ and our belief in that type of religious beliefs, I don't think we'd have made it.
And you were in the public eye. You had to go out there and be singing happy trails to you during these tragedies.
Yeah, you have to sing sometimes when you're hurting all over, but I guess that's where the show business comes in.
Well, how does it make you feel, though, to know that you really and truly are the last of a dying breed?
Well, I'm happy to be here, and I'm proud of what we did at the time for the generations of kids that were growing up at that time, because they come in here and it was an impression on their whole life. Kids, guys come in here in their 50s and 60s, and they just throw their arms around you like you're their long-lost brother and thank you for what you meant to their lives and everything. And it just got to thrill you. You know, it's got to make you feel good.
Do you think of yourself as a hero?
No, I'm just old Roy Rogers.
Looking at your life and everything you've done, do you feel totally fulfilled?
I don't have anything to worry about. Don't need nothing, don't want nothing, don't owe nothing. So I just, as I said, happy to be here.
And we should show them how good you look under that white hat. You've got a nice head of hair there.
And it's mine.